My sweet little angel.
Let's be honest here, nothing beats exploring an ancient house and uncovering its secrets. This is Scratch's Director's Cut by Nucleosys. Scratches is a horror mystery point-and-click adventure. An abandoned Victorian house in the middle of nowhere, England. Need I say more? Yeah, the premise isn't very original, especially when we play as a writer seeking peace, quiet, and inspiration to finish his novel. But the game is so atmospheric and beautiful. At times I felt like just going back to hang out in the house. So if this interests you, get out. Oh, wait. Where's the buy button? Okay, maybe on Good Old Games? No. So yeah, you can't buy this game. Turns out that the publisher went under, so now the devs have no one to buy the IP back from. So they encourage, you know. And the game actually just works when you open it. Isn't that amazing? Games just launching and working with no additional tweaking needed. Crazy, right? Anyways, if you wanna go play Scratches for yourself, you know what you have to do. Let's get right into the game.
I arrived at Blackwood Manor one cold Saturday morning amidst a thick veil of fog. The weather didn't look good, and there was an unnatural calm surrounding the area, yet I soon became entangled with the place.
Whoa. Okay, this camera is kinda difficult to control. When selecting the menu options, the mouse sensitivity appeared fine, and I think this unique effect has more to do with the effects than with the mouse sensitivity in itself. I mean, The camera doesn't stop when you stop moving the mouse. Also, when you're in a zoom-in screen and then leave, the camera shoots to wherever your mouse moved during the zoom, instead of, not doing that. Okay, it's not ideal, but let's not let it discourage us from exploring this. As for the cutscenes, the one with the pictures is amazing. It sets the tone straight away and immerses you right in. The following one is fine, but there's something that's deeply bothering me. The sky. It looks painted on, and not in like a majestic painting type of way. Like there's a piece of fabric hanging over my head painted to look like the sky and the tops of the trees. It's even more bizarre when I look around and look at the leaves, the little details. Look at this little chapel, it's so beautiful. The visuals are impressive, especially considering this game's from 2006, and it all makes the sky situation even more jarring. After exploring everything we could outside and getting the authentic forest experience by getting lost after a single step into it, we finally enter the house. It has this Silent Hill or Resident Evil? Oh, for fuck's sake, whichever one has this door effect. Oh my god, my lack of gamer knowledge is showing. Don't look at me like that, I know the difference. Silent Hill is the one with the fog and was inspired by Jacob's Ladder, and Resident Evil is the other one. The main actress from the movies dated John Frusciante for a while. Anyways, I sure hope I won't get spooked by those doors later. By the way, this is giving me Pineville Drive vibes, if you know that game. Or I guess Pineville Drive gives Scratches vibes. The phone starts ringing shortly after we enter, so we pick up and it's Jerry, our real estate agent and friend, checking in on us. We tell him that we're impressed. We'll turn this place into a factory of horror stories, but we still have to look around to make sure that everything's in order, so we'll talk to him later. We talk to Jerry a lot throughout the game. It's basically, when in doubt of how to proceed, call Jerry. Now we look around the house, and this takes me very long because I look at every single nook and cranny, except for this door in the kitchen, which I didn't even notice. One thing I did notice and just keep staring at is the attention to details, not only in the texture of the walls and all the gazillion drawers we can open, but also in the ceilings. Ceilings are often kinda ignored because you're probably not gonna spend the game looking up, but look at this! The dirt, mold, details, it's so impressive and mesmerizing. It's like all the effort that wasn't put into the above outside was taken care of inside, but anyways. When we round back to the living room, we find a journal on the coffee table. April 20th. During a fit of rage, I burnt my previous diary. Not that I regret it, as if my disjointed notes were worth anything. The only purpose was to keep me sane. I feel that this is my escape route, my only means of finding some inner peace. Whenever I put my pen to this paper, I feel that I can reflect upon my situation. I just wish I had more options, that's all. But I'm rambling. I must think clearly. Focus. May 12th. I've become an eternal guardian, stuck between few choices, none of which are good. Do I fulfill a promise and violate everything that I believe in, the very principles of my life? Or am I condemned to spend the rest of my existence in this deadened state, a ghost with no other purpose than just being here, watching? I truly have no escape. I can't find an appropriate solution to this problem, and I must pay the price. I'm a shadow of the man I used to be. Only these notes remain, my testament in these moments of meditation, my sole companion. June 26th. Today I spent the entire afternoon staring at the window, my mind a blank. Oddly enough, I really didn't care. It seems now as though it was something natural for me, a part of my personality. But I know the reason very well. I've lost my soul. I'm an empty shell, devoid of any feelings. I renounced them on that fateful day. And the worst thing is, I knew there were going to be consequences. No, that's not true. Consequences were far worse than I expected. How could I be so blind? January 21st. I often wonder what would have happened if we had simply reversed it all. What would happen if right now I come out and told the world what really happened? No, I'd end up rotting in jail. Although that might be a better destiny compared to this eternal suffering. November 17th. I can't say for sure when it began. I just heard them one morning, coming from the next room. The whispers. Are they real? Have I been alone for too long? They won't stop. I can't stand them any longer. February 9th. Ever since I locked it away, that everything seems to have calmed down a bit. Perhaps James was right after all. It's madness, I know, but at this point I'd be inclined to believe anything. May. Over the years I was convinced that everything James suffered was a misfortune, a whim of destiny. For the first time ever, I'm not so sure anymore. I never thought it could happen, but I believe I understand now. If this is so, then cursed be my soul. Poor James. If I had acted in another way, then maybe things would have worked out differently. But it's too late now, and I have to suffer my Calvary. September 13th. The noises are back, although this time they're different. Before, I'd only hear them inside my head, as if someone or something was whispering and, how to put this, interrupting my thoughts. But now, I can really feel them spreading around the house. What are they? September 14th. I've realized the noises are coming from down here. I don't want to think about it anymore. December. They are unbearable. They get worse at night. Oh, how I wish it would stop. What is going on down there? I don't dare to go nearer. I don't want to know. May. God, how many years have passed? I lost all sense of time. I have to get out of this place. Okay, very, very interesting. Might even serve as inspiration for our upcoming book. We then climb up the stairs and reach our room. It's very, very nice, but also weird that there's no wardrobe. Well, you can't have everything. We set our typewriter down, but we won't be able to focus on our work until we finish our exploration. So on to the upper floors. Here we find a sort of miniature museum with quite a collection of African pieces. We find this note by a Simon Roswell, thanking James for the gift of a few African shields, and saying that he's looking into the Dalmar creatures the other had mentioned. He's found a few books that reference them and will send them via mail at once. Opposite to this museum is the bedroom, and our main character says that he doesn't want to go over the hundreds of useless trinkets that are probably hiding in these drawers, even though he has no problem examining every single cheap and ugly painting in this house. I see how it is. There are some mirrors here that are certainly gonna be used for a puzzle later, but not much else. There's a bathroom at the end of the hallway here, and another flight of stairs into the second floor, which are ominously guarded by this famous haunted painting. Up here, this door is stuck. This room can barely be recognized as a bathroom. This room has an electric stove and made me realize something funny about perspective. If you try to look at your feet in this game, all of a sudden you seem extremely tall. I don't understand enough about video game visuals to tell you why, but it must be a side effect of the perspective used. I don't think it's a bad thing because things around you look great and you very rarely have a reason to look directly at your feet, but it's interesting regardless. Then there's a door locked from the other side that sent me on a wild chase, because it says that the keys don't unlock on the other side, so we could get a piece of paper under the door and push it out, then pull the paper back and boom, we got the key. So I was like, great, I've solved this before in postmortem. All I have to do is find the exact piece of paper this character wants to use on the door. This is an annoying aspect of certain puzzles, like, I have a perfectly serviceable object to do the job, but no, the main character wants a specific thing, so it can't be done. But anyways, this isn't a problem exclusive to scratches, we'll get back to this door later. And then what seems to be an unfinished tower? I mean, it doesn't lead anywhere and it's bare concrete, so I'm guessing it's unfinished. Seems like something I'd build on The Sims, or in real life if I had the money. Anyways, on the second floor, there's also these stairs leading to the attic. Something that's a little distracting is that the doorknob's here, but in the door opening animation it's on the other side. We come up here a lot, so it's a very in-your-face error, but okay, nothing huge. Here we find a bunch of junk, piles of newspapers, and these pictures in a chest. Girl, I ain't even gonna attempt reading that. Sorry that happened to you, or happy for you. We go back down to call Jerry, telling him that everything seems in order, but the lights aren't working. He says, oh yeah, don't worry. I asked my electrician friend to go meet you. He should be at the gate. We also call Barbara, our assistant, just to check up on her. We hype each other up, telling her she's gonna be super busy when our new book's out, and she tells us that it's gonna be a hit. We then go see if the electrician is actually here, but no, there's no one. There is a note though, saying that he waited for a few minutes, but decided to leave. See you later. We call Jerry, furious, like, dude, get that electrician back here right this instant. But, no. Why don't we check the fuses? Maybe it's something simple that we can fix ourselves. We try the door to the basement, but it's locked. Well, what about this other door? Here we enter the maid's room, and this is actually so nice. She was also an aspiring photographer, as we can see by the countless books on the subject and photos scattered around. We also find a piece of paper, a letter written in Italian, which makes us curious. We'll try to find a way to translate it later. Then there's this picture which shows a key hanging from the key holder, and below it, a vase. Okay, progress! We just need to find that vase and boom, we get the key. There's another door here which leads to a bathroom that was transformed into a dark room. The very same one, in fact, from that beginning cutscene. Seems like the water isn't running either. My god, Jerry, do you wanna kill us in here? While looking for that vase, we find this note in our bedroom. Admit it's otherworldly creatures, can still hear them, if James was right, God have mercy on us. Same stuff, dude. There are also some anatomical drawings here and a diploma, suggesting that whoever used this room before us, and also supposedly the author of that note and the diary, was a doctor. While searching for the elusive vase, we also check the library for any Italian dictionaries, but find none. What we do find is that if you click picked so perfectly. The main character actually mentions the title of a book. There's one in every shelf from what I could find. This is a really nice touch. Also, he says that Stephen King's overrated. Looks like someone's jealous. On the table here, we notice yet another diary, this time by James himself. February 6th. The construction of the railway bridge is almost complete and went quite smoothly. It took longer than I expected, yet I wish it would have lasted longer. I will be very sad to leave South Africa. I've become so attached to it, its culture, its arts, over the past few months, that I can't help feeling as if it was already a part of me. I will surely return someday. Soon, hopefully, although I'm afraid there is a great deal of work to be taken care of back in Old Britain. Fortunately, I made good friends here who were ecstatic about my new appreciation of their country. They have offered me some wonderful objects as a token of gratitude, which I have already created and gotten ready to ship, along with many trinkets I bought myself. It looks like I'm about to start a very substantial collection. It's a good thing Catherine agreed to move into our new home, although I fear several renovations will have to be made, even more if I'm intending to start a serious new hobby. It seems I'll have to get back to work. John Patterson has just told me some natives are causing trouble. A very unfortunate thing, although I'm secretly rejoicing. February 12th. The natives won't leave. It's not like they're causing trouble, so much as they're unsettling our workers. The only complaint so far has been distraction. They just stand still between the trees staring at us, without blinking an eye. I've watched them for a few minutes and they truly seem like some tenebrous statues. At first it was just annoying, but lately it has become downright creepy. They seem to be stalking us, so it's not like they're hindering the construction, but there is a general uneasy feeling as if they were about to jump at us at any moment. I think I will hire some protection as a measure of precaution. February 15th. Fascinating. I've been looking into these natives. They live in a nearby village and are a very small group, yet they seem to manage quite well. I had thought of them as quite an uncivilized tribe, but their movements are calculated and one can perceive a sense of careful organization in their tasks. Oddly enough, they seem to be very brutish, and their aspect looks awful, although I couldn't take a good look at their facial features as I followed one of them completely on my own, and it could have been dangerous getting any closer. Also, the village is poor and very rough, but some of the shacks left out as inviting or special. It made me very curious. I will try to come closer tomorrow. February 16th. My second expedition to the village of the natives has been foiled by an unexpected problem at the bridge. I'm afraid it was due to a slight miscalculation on my part, an indication that I should be focusing more on the task at hand and put my sudden love for all African things aside for the moment. It was my fault and I accept it. February 20th. They are at it again, lurking beyond the forest. It's amazing how they have changed our perception of the surroundings. At first we were delighted by the quiet nature of the place. Now we fear what horrors might be concealed in that dark and foreboding cloak of trees. The tops loom above us, overshadowing the bridge, and strange noises haunt our meals. Even the river telling ungodly secrets. We could be, of course, a bit more sensitive towards distractions, but I can't help feeling that the area has in fact become more sinister. And yet, I'm still looking forward to satisfying my curiosity about the tribe. February 24th. At last I found something more about the neighboring tribe. This is an incredible finding and I just can't withhold my excitement. Some elders at the local town happen to know about them, but only through stories they heard. The most surprising thing is that the tribe was assumed to be extinct long ago, but according to my vague descriptions, the elders think that we could be dealing with a legend here. Everything they ever learned of them was during their childhood, when the tribe was stalking the town, much in the same way they have been stalking us. People used to call them Dlaam, as such was the sound of screams heard echoing late in the night. They'd come out into the streets and see an evil glitter atop a hill in the distance. Some would say it was a fire, others the cursed spirit of an ancient god. Whatever it was, they say the bright light, amid those fantastic screams, was bone-chilling. The macabre scene would suddenly stop just as it had begun out of nowhere, never to be seen again in days to come. Intervals between those horrible nights became longer and longer, until they soon faded into oblivion. The tribe apparently had retreated back into obscurity, until now. They were later known as the Dalmar, a rather more scientific name, although none of the people I spoke with could possibly remember its origin. I find it extremely surprising that nobody has ever heard about this tribe, with the exception of a few townspeople. They must be incredibly rare, and judging by the stories passed on from generations in the town, very old. February 27th. I will confess that I've become nearly obsessed with this strange tribe. I see them as the most prized goal of my appreciation towards all South African things, a dangerous yet irresistible reward. I feel as if they were my discovery. I simply have to study them before leaving. I fear I won't have the chance to ever again. It has become an important goal of mine, even more important than finishing the bridge. March 4th. Finally, I have managed to see them. My God, what a disturbing spectacle. When we arrived, they were moving around the village very slowly, without speaking or communicating with each other, each minding his or her own business, completely alien to the rest of the world. They were filthy looking, coarse, and downright disgusting. I couldn't see any weapons, but they could have been stored somewhere. It was all very strange behavior in a tribe. They must be quite unique. Then, as if they had suddenly all become possessed by some wild spirit, they began shaking spasmodically and screaming like mad. Some of them dropped to their knees and lifted their heads to the sky, eyes blank, and moaning in an indescribable way. Two of them walked away, still in that monotonous and slow manner, and in great contrast to the rest of the scene, into a shack. The next minute they brought out into the open an odd-looking mask. Its shapes, colors, and overall looks, while unsettling, were mesmerizing, and I felt instantly hypnotized by it. It rendered my modest collection of African curiosities into dull and uninteresting items. The mask was very ominous, and the whole tribe seemed to greatly revere it. Soon they began to gather around it and move in circles, fluttering and chanting a guttural psalm. Judging by their motions and the aspect of the whole ritual, it must have been some kind of war ritual. I'm not sure how to explain what happened next, as I feel my pulse is already throbbing. Words fail me to recount the most disturbing thing I've ever witnessed. One of the male villagers walked into the middle, near the mask, by his own will. It was an almost automatic act. All of a sudden, the remaining members became silent. I can't tell for how long it lasted, but I was afraid to breathe. I think Dolby and the others were also scared. They wouldn't even blink. I remember being soaked wet and expectant. The silence was so unnatural. Then a few members separated from the people circling the mask and jumped onto the single villager, beating him to death. To be completely faithful to the event, The small crowd tore him apart. They grabbed his legs in twos and threes and twisted them in a manner I dare not describe. His face was disfigured with their bare fingernails and teeth, and the torso soon disappeared under the frenzied tangle of hands. In a matter of a few minutes, the villager was turned into a red sack of bones. Not one of the attackers had the compassion to snap his neck during the sickening process. All was very methodical, as if it was just another mundane task. The most terrifying aspect, though, was that the victim didn't even cringe. The silence was so deep I could hear his flesh ripping. I would expect any living creature to scream its guts out in such a condition. I can't tell whether he was drugged or half asleep, but I did recognize him dancing like everybody else before walking into the middle of the circle. It was the most outrageous and sadistic sacrifice I've ever heard of. I don't think I will ever forget what I saw. My intentions of approaching further, even if they didn't have any weapons at hand, vanished. Those creatures, I dare not call them human beings, could have killed my whole company in the blink of an eye with their rage. They seemed to be completely out of themselves and willing to destroy anything intruding into their path. While the images of the sacrifice still haunt my thought, I still can't seem to forget that mask. It was so deceptively simple and yet perfect in its design. I haven't seen anything like it. I surely would love to take a better look. I feel the Dalmar, dangerous as they are, could be the most important ethical finding in decades. What I've seen today is crying for some further investigating. I just can't leave them like that. I would never forgive myself. And the mask. That mask. Okay, that's unsettling. Oh look, the vase. Let's check the basement out. The fuses seem fine, nothing looks blown here. There's this drain, stuck valve, and our guy is scared of this big furnace for some reason. He feels that it's ominous. Back to update Jerry, the problem is much more serious than just some blown fuses. And then he says that the electrician will be back tomorrow, but for now, find some candles. Question, did you see any candles during your exploration? Yeah, no, there are none. That's insane. I don't own golden candelabras and I don't live in a Victorian mansion. And I have candles. So back to Jerry. There are no candles and this guy can't think for himself. Well, drive to the city before it gets too dark, Jerry says. Great idea, we say. Only problem is we forgot the car lights on and the battery is dead. Jerry.
My friend, this completely redefines the term suspension of disbelief you sometimes use for your stories.
He then promises to drive by tomorrow, stock up on candles and food, and then sit around in the yard, drinking beer and waiting for the electrician to arrive. Sounds good? Great. We also call Barbara, asking her to translate that letter from Italian. We put it in our mailbox, we just have to hope that the mailman doesn't forget about us. We try to sit down and write, but no, he doesn't wanna sleep either. So back down to call our trusty real estate agent, out of sheer boredom. And he actually tells us that there was a grisly murder in the house. He doesn't remember any details, except the date, May 1963. Anyways, we go up to that pile of newspapers in the attic and look for that specific date. Ah, here it is. Mr. James Blackwood, distinguished resident of this town, blah, blah, was accused of murder yesterday by Miss Eva Mariani, maid of the Blackwood family, blah blah blah. Miss Mariani affirms to having a photograph that supports the accusation. I knew no one would believe me, so I took a picture of him, she says. I was supposed to be in town during the afternoon, blah blah blah. The lady, oh god, the soul thought sent shivers down my spine. The photograph in question is in possession of authorities, and it has been revealed that it clearly shows Mr. Blackwood burying a shape in his garden. We can almost confirm that the shape is a body, but even if the image is not clear, this alone with Miss Mariani's statement is to open a serious case. Up until this accusation, it was believed that Mrs. Catherine Blackwood was on a trip. Blah 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 blah. The efforts of Dr. Christopher Milton, one of Rothbury's most respected doctors and longtime friend of the Blackwood family, to minimize the facts have been unsuccessful, and the news is the subject of discussion throughout the whole town. Why would a wealthy and educated man cold-heartedly murder his wife after 30 years of marriage? Ooh, the plot thickens. A man meets a mysterious tribe in Africa and comes back transformed. I wonder what exactly is going on here. Spirits? A curse? We shall see. Well, now that our mind is full of horror stories, time to hit the hay. We get up in the middle of the night. The only actions available leading us to the African display in the next room. We soon notice a door where a display used to be, and a hammer on the floor. And then we wake up, for real this time, with an annoying scratching sound that reverberates through the room. We check, but the display is still there, firmly stuck in place. Back to our bedroom, we approach the fireplace, where the noises seem to get louder. Checking the fireplace in the living room below, yeah, the noises are definitely coming from the basement. But our man was scared of the basement during the day. There's no way he's going back down there in the middle of the night, without any light. Luckily, the scratching stopped, so he's able to go back to sleep. We wake up, and a storm of biblical proportions is raging outside. Yeah, I don't think that beer hangout's gonna happen today. Well, perfect weather to write, right? No. This is just Writer Simulator. Think about writing and planning on writing, but not writing a single line. We go downstairs to, guess what? Call Jerry. Yeah, he's not coming today. A lot of the roads have actually been blocked off. It's kind of impossible to reach the manor today. And we don't have any food! I've yet to see a single sign of intelligent life in this main character. Who wouldn't pack at least a few snacks when moving into a Victorian mansion in the middle of nowhere, where the rats probably destroyed most of the wiring? Anyways, at least we can drink some water by sticking our head out the window. That's a plus. We then go check the basement and yup, nothing unusual. I did spook myself by opening the furnace door here. I just didn't expect it to open. Half the things here are stuck or rusted. Okay, great. Sunday. The man doesn't want to write. What are we gonna do? Messing around, clicking on stuff, we actually find a secret safe hidden behind this painting in the master bedroom. Jerry! No, really, there's no secret clues. We literally just call Jerry and he gives us the code. I actually kinda like what Scratches is doing here. It's still very much a horror game, exploring the Victorian manor, but it doesn't get to the point of being meta, but I get the sense that the devs had a sense of humor when creating the game and making the puzzles and stuff, when it comes to several of point-and-click adventure tropes. I'll get back to this later. For now, let's see what we have here. A key, nice, very nice, and the contract for the building of that second floor, going over the numbers, etc. There's also the bank's phone number, but I tried calling it and no one answered. Maybe on Monday. Now, about this key. It's a simple design, so I don't think it fits any of the fancy drawers down here. We end up with only one solution. The door locked from the other side upstairs. We grab this newspaper, slide it under the door, push the other key and... I love this. There's the sense of humor I was talking about again. We use the key we found in the safe and soon we find ourselves in an art room. The main character comments that whoever painted these was seriously disturbed, like he himself isn't a horror writer and knows that self-expression is more complicated than that, but fine. On the table here we find another key, a lid, okay, thanks I guess. And oh, the plant of the house! On the first floor we noticed that there should have been a door between our room and the master bedroom, but there's nothing there now. Huh. We can also enter the adjacent room, which is full of trash. But we do get a rope, some oil, and kerosene for a lantern we found earlier. Can I just say, this lighting effect is kind of annoying. RIP people with epilepsy. Back to the first floor, we take a closer look at the wall where the door should have been. Peeling a bit of the wallpaper, we can see that it has been bricked over. We'll have to find another way in. Now, I have to admit I checked the walkthrough here. I couldn't have possibly guessed that the main character would be this desperate to get into the mysterious room. But we have to tie the rope to this lamp, make a hole on the wall with a hammer, throw the rope through the hole, go down to the lower window and then climb down with the rope to the secret room's window. Yeah, in the middle of the storm. Closed roads, Jerry ain't arriving anytime soon. If you fall and let's be generous, twist your ankle. No one will be there to help you. Just wait until tomorrow and grab a ladder. Of course, suspension of disbelief, blah blah blah. But like, I have my limits. And it gets worse. We make it into the room and it's a nursery and there are letter blocks here that are obviously gonna be used in a future puzzle. I really hope that only happens tomorrow and we actually get a letter to do the job, preferably with Jerry watching our back. Because climbing down and up there, because you went mad with curiosity, okay, I can force myself to understand. But climbing down and up, again, to look at the little blocks, at the risk of twisting your ankle, breaking your ankle, tearing through the skin of your palms if you slip, breaking your neck, or all of the above, it's a bit much. Okay, nursery. Bricked up, abandoned nursery. We find a birth certificate for a son of James and his wife, Catherine. He was born in 1961, and our esteemed author thinks that if we find this last member of the family, he can answer some questions about what happened here. Like, bricked up nursery. Hello? But, okay, fine, back up we go and off to rummage through that pile of newspapers. And you never guess the baby died only days after being born. Mrs. Blackwood had been having stomach pains and the family friend and doctor, Christopher Milton, said that the child was doomed from the start. No other details. Honestly, even in the context of a horror game, this isn't weird. Like, babies died all the time. This was the 60s and this is a rural area, so like, I'm guessing that you can't just rush the baby to a hospital if there's something. Which, by the way, that picture in the beginning, it showed Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood, right? And they should have been looking very, like, 50s. But they look Victorian. I don't know, I just thought that was interesting. Like, I didn't expect them to be, like, swinging London, but if you're gonna set your story around, 1961, 62, have your women looking at something like this, Anyways, back to the dead baby. Unless Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood got married when they were like toddlers, this was a geriatric pregnancy, considering the 30 years of marriage from the newspaper that announced the murder 2 years after this. So yeah, that baby was even more at risk than normal. But nah, must be something supernatural, let's move on. We tried to call Jerry, but the phone lines are down. Guess the digit's alone for now. Now, something that I think this game could do better is give us an objective. Like, the entire house is open to us right away, items don't vanish from our inventory once we use them, and this dumbass never says what he wants to do. Not in his diary, not in his thoughts, you just have to guess. So you'll be going up and down the house with a WD-40, trying to use it in every stuck and jammed thing you found. I mean, there's a valve that's stuck in the basement, we can't turn it. Am I crazy to assume that a little oil would help? But no, that's not what the oil's for. I understand that this is more realistic, but it would also be realistic for a guy to go, time to hit the hay, you know, and he doesn't. But really, slightly more tips on the puzzles would have fixed this. And it's kind of insane because this is the director's cut. Like, this is the new and improved version, okay? Did no critic mention this? Okay. Back to the story, it's time to get that display out of the way. We can detach this bottom part, revealing the wheels, which we oil, and boom, there's the secret door from our vision. We remove the planks and then enter this mysterious room. Everything is dark, and when we light our lamp, we come face to face with this, the mask. To the side here there are some papers, the first set of which are a letter from James to Christopher, asking for help. He admits that he didn't get the mask by honest means, and now he believes that it is evil itself, and it'll bring suffering and doom to those who disgrace it. He fears that even if he returns it, his fate is already sealed. Please come as soon as possible. Yes, my dearest friend, I fear I am in mortal and inescapable peril. Please come get caught up in it as soon as possible. The other stack of papers is a continuation of James's diary. Digging up much of anything about the Dalmar was like pulling teeth. Even the most renowned African historians avoided talking about them, referring to them as simply the war tribe. Researching more obscure titles, he found that they're not a simple war tribe. They revere evil, destruction, and death, and despise anything that's alive and not from their village. They'll go to another village, kill every single person, burn everything down, then leave. Other tribes war for resources or squabbles, but them, they're more like exterminators. And they don't use weapons either, supposedly strengthened by an inhuman source. It would be difficult to believe if James hadn't seen it with his own two eyes. Seems like all this horror show has finally inspired our main character and he sits down to write. Blah blah blah, I ain't reading all that. Happy you made progress, my guy. And then, no day would be complete without calling Jerry before bed, right? We tell him that James Blackwood was caught up in something much darker than just a murder, and he goes,
Simple act of murder? Oh goody. Just somebody died, nothing to worry about. This isn't like you, Michael. This whole thing is really affecting you.
He wants to call the police, but we tell him, no, I'll solve this myself. But like, Jerry is also very stupid here. Yes, our book, right. But also, a true horror story, with no Blackwood family left to take us to court over whatever we publish. We are gonna be rich! At least that's what I choose to believe, since our guy doesn't even mention those options. This is apparently just for his curiosity. Fine, let's get to bed. And we wake up once again in the middle of the night. Something feels off, but it seems like we're awake now. And I'm just gonna let what happens next roll. Now, you might be thinking, Liv, your gameplay is very inefficient. Why did I have to watch all that looking around? That, fellas, wasn't me getting delivery at the door or letting my cats play for a while. I was actually scared to move forward. Even in that deposit room, knowing what I was gonna see when opening the door, the vision of it still made all the muscles in my back tense up to their limit. Now, yeah, I play a lot of horror games, but they're usually more like Halloween themed than horror proper. Like, be honest with me, if you played through Black Mirror, you weren't scared. It's an amazing game, but scared for my life I was not. Even in what I claim is a religious horror game that's actually scary, I was never stalling because I just didn't want to continue. Saint Coulter is still scary, but in a very different way. What I mean is that scratches went where no point and click ever went, at least in my experience. And yet, when I composed myself, there it was, that almost meta quality and sense of humor to it. Because when we had the first nightmare, the first thing I did to check if it was real or a dream was see if I could still interact with things in the room, like the drawers or the typewriter, and I couldn't. So, dream, right? But then this time around, I could interact with the stuff, so that immediately put my brain in real life mode. And then bam, it was a nightmare. That subtle subversion of expectations was just amazing. But let's get back to the game. We wake up to scratching sounds again, and now we have a lantern, so we gather our courage and go check the basement. There's a weird furnace, and then... No, you're not gonna go in there, right? For reasons I cannot comprehend, we climb into the furnace and crawl, and... Okay, back, and then we go back to sleep. How? The next day, we... Guess. No, really, guess. We go call Jerry, of course. And this one is... I'll just let it play.
Who is it?
It's me.
The ghost hunter. Any contact with the other world yet?
Actually, I'm not sure. Jerry, I'm definitely not alone in this house.
What are you talking about?
Last night I saw something down below. It was moving. I wasn't dreaming, and I'm not making this up.
Are you sure it wasn't a mutant rat?
Definitely no rat.
I'm calling the police.
No, not just yet.
Michael, for Christ's sake, you could have a burglar inside the house.
This is no burglar, Jerry. It's much more interesting than that, and I want to figure this out by myself.
Have you taken leave of your senses?
Just promise me you won't call anyone. I can do this on my own.
Whatever. Just call me if you need any help. I'm driving there today.
Right. Bye.
You would think that being a horror writer would prepare you for these situations. Like, get into the car and wait for Jerry, then get out of here. But no, apparently. Lord, here we go. We try to leave since the storm has passed, but our guy thinks it's too cold in the house and wants to do something about that before leaving. Ah, yes, light a fire in the Victorian manner. And then leave. And then leave the fire unattended. Idiot, how did you make it to adulthood like this? Anyways, we leave and can't say I'm surprised, but would it have been too much to ask for a different sky? I mean, it's supposedly morning, yet the sky is kinda like red and purple. Anyways, we check our mailbox, but there's nothing in there right now. Maybe later. We then head over to the shed, opening the padlock with the key we found. In here, we find this bike with a thing attached to the back wheel. Then we grab some tools from the toolbox and ooh, crowbar! Our guy then says that he doesn't want to get any closer to this old car. He feels like something might jump out at him at any second, which is very sensible and I feel the same way. We then walk over to the greenhouse and use our trusty WD-40 with the rusted doorknob, which allows us to open the door. Wow. This may very well be my favorite location in the game. I mean, look at this! Look at the ceiling! The atmosphere here is dense, thick. I can practically feel the dead cellulose sticking to my skin. Anyways, we can see something shiny under the drain here, but can't reach it no matter what. Look at the glass! Okay, Liv, focus. To the right, a potted plant has fallen over the drain, and we cut a few branches off. Opposite to the shiny thing, there's a faucet, but again, the water's not running. Oh, I think I know what we have to do, but let's check upstairs first. Wow. Okay, back to the story. There's a table to the side here, and in one of the drawers we find some notes by James, lamenting that all his plants seem to be dying all of a sudden, so he's decided to stop caring for the greenhouse. He's especially sad about a plant he brought from Africa, and thinks about bringing it to the upper floor so it gets more sun. Supposedly this one here. Here we also notice a water hose and a shovel stuck in the dried out dirt. Okay, now back to the house. It's time for that valve to move. After a few attempts, we figure out that we have to hook the crowbar to it like this, and then hit it with a hammer. That was certainly an unexpected way to turn a valve, but okay, back to the greenhouse. And now the water's finally running. There's just one issue. I don't know where it's running to. Well, let's just go do something else. I'm sure we'll stumble upon it sooner or later. For some reason, we can unscrew the suspicious mirror here, so sure. We then head over to the family crypt, which I don't think I showed on the first day. You get there by leaving through the kitchen door and following this path. We have pliers now, which allows us to untwist the wire that's keeping the door shut. And so we enter. Our main guy notices the grates on the floor and thinks, I don't know why there would need grates. There's no one breathing down there. But it's probably so the decomposition gases have an easier time dissipating. Anyways. I think I actually gasped out loud when I first saw this. Like, stained glass! This is such a nice surprise! Ceilings! Anyways, we go downstairs to check the other family members out. Most of the inscriptions have faded, which I find very hard to believe. It's not like they're exposed to the elements or anything. One of the coffins holds the corpse of a cat for some reason, and another is notably smaller than the others. It's too dark to make out the name though. Back upstairs, we take a look in the coffins here. There's one body, and then no one. 2 coffins, only one body. The plaques here say that Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood died on the same year. Did James fake his death? We then grab this rock, and here I look at the walkthrough because, again, I would never guess what this guy wants to do. He wants to break the stained glass window above with the rock, and then use the mirror to get more light downstairs. What? Wouldn't it be simpler to, I don't know, fill the inscription with your hands? It's a name. You don't exactly need to be Helen Keller to figure it out. Or use the good old piece of paper and pencil trick to get the imprint. Something you literally did 2 days ago. But yeah, this guy loves living dangerously and complicatedly. So use the rock mirror trick. And the inscription is too faded. All we can make out is the first letter, R. I'm starting to question my sanity here. No, but okay, these plaques are usually made from bronze. They would have, at most, become green. They would have only eroded if someone rubbed them for long enough. Which, okay, people grieving might do, but like, enough for the name to almost completely vanish? For example, my dad had a coin which was silver, but the point still stands. It was from what, 1808, I believe? It was from before Napoleon became emperor because it said like consul in the coin. Imagine, that coin clinked and clanked from hand to hand for 200 years until it reached my dad. And then it clinked and clanked and clinked and clanked with his other coins for another like 20 years. And it still looked perfect. I mean, not perfect, but you could clearly see Napoleon's bust and read the inscription and the year, no problem at all. Okay, now that I've assessed that I'm not completely insane, let's continue. Despite that last bit having been a waste of time, we did find something interesting here, so we hurry over to tell Jerry that James Blackwood might still be alive. He doesn't believe us and blah blah blah. You see, Jerry. We then call the bank. Remember the number we found in the contract yesterday? With a bit of acting, we managed to glean the information that James Blackwood's bank account is still active. Checking the pile of newspapers, we find the news of his death. Supposedly a heart attack, with Dr. Christopher Milton taking care of everything, including the funeral that no one will attend. There's also a phone number here of the officer in charge of the case. We call him pretending that we're a journalist. Yeah, that'll make him talk. I think the only time someone would pretend to be a journalist is when you're like something much worse. Okay, cut. Blah blah blah. Finally, we get to the important part. Blackwood and Milton hampered the investigation. The police was never able to set foot on the estate. There was never an autopsy, and Mrs. Blackwood's body was never retrieved. By the way, something that I haven't brought up until now, but is also something, is that this game is so dark. I've tweaked the image a little bit for a better viewing experience, but like, this is what it looks like without any editing. Not just horror game dark, it's the crappiest low brightness, low contrast combo. Doesn't matter what your screen settings usually are, you need to crank them up in order to see scratches. And if they're already maxed, womp womp, bring out the blackout curtains because you won't be able to see much of anything without them. Anyways, let's move on. Of course, to dig up a body, we're gonna need a shovel. So we head back to the greenhouse and water the dirt here until we can take the tool. And here I once again get lost in the forest. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but leaving the greenhouse there's a bright path which takes us to this tree, and a barely visible path, shrouded in darkness, which takes us back to the house. And the bright one is just the one you're always gonna take, the obvious one. Maybe it was intentional because I would have never found this tree if it wasn't like this, if the path were reversed, like if this was a dark path. I would have never thought of like looking for another path because it's so camouflaged. And look! The shiny object ended up here. And it's a key. We try opening the chapel but it doesn't fit, which can only mean one thing. This does fit in one of the drawers of the table in the library. In here we find a box that requires a 5-digit code. We'll get back to it later. And this letter here. March 21st, 1963. Dear Catherine, first of all, I beg you to take the utmost care in order to keep this letter away from James. I don't like to think of the mental breakdown he would suffer if he reads this. You know James much better than I do, so you must share my conviction that he'd never harm anything, but even so, I'd ask you to be careful whenever he's around, at least until we sort out the situation. He has been especially unstable lately, speaking about his determination to suppress this so-called curse. I truly fear for him and for his sanity. I still wouldn't say he qualifies as dangerous, but just in case, be cautious. I've been playing the role of an ally who believes in James, and so far I think I've done a good job in convincing him. But I'm afraid it won't last for too much longer. I can't do all the things he's now asking me to. He has been delving into some very obscure arts, and what began as a hobby has now become a dangerous obsession. He wants me to perform an African ritual on that awful mask he brought. He's convinced he has released an ancient spirit which will harm everything he loves and cares for. It's also so utterly insane that I'm ashamed to translate this into words. My biggest fear is that I will end up losing my own mind along with his. I have to put an end to all of this. And about that other issue, you should know I've gotten over it. Catherine, what we did 2 years ago, the decision we made and knew would affect the course of our lives, has been haunting my sleep ever since then. I know you must be the one more affected by this, but you wouldn't understand all that has been going through my head. The confusion, the contradiction. Now more than ever, I'm not sure whether it was the right decision or not. But there's no turning back and we must face the consequences. All I wanted to say about this is that I'm deeply sorry if I behaved erratically these past days and unnerved you. You have my word I won't ever reveal anything. Whatever you do with this letter, make sure James doesn't feel anything suspicious. I'd rather have you destroy this though. Extreme situations require extreme measures. Christopher. Oh my god. So, if I'm understanding this right, Christopher and Catherine had an affair, and the kid was actually theirs. So to hide their affair, they killed the kid. Oh my god, and the fact that this was in James's drawer under lock and key. What if the body we found isn't actually James? It's Christopher. No, wait, that doesn't make any sense. It would be a nice story for James to kill both of them in a jealous fit of rage, and then pretend to be a recluse Christopher living out the rest of his days in Blackwood Manor over all these years until the madness of the mask caught up with him and turned him into a basement-dwelling creature. But we did find Christopher's diary in the beginning, talking about the evil presence in the house and how James might have been right all along. Then maybe he killed James? But anyways, regardless, the plot thickens. Well, now seems like a good time to check our mail again, and there it is, the letter's translation. It's the farmer maid telling her mother how she wants to go back home. Things have become strange in Blackwood Manor, and how she hides the photo she takes under a loose floorboard right below her bedside table. Yahoo! Progress! Here we find the infamous picture. James Blackwood digging his wife's grave. The picture was taken from one of the windows and we can see the shadow of the house stretching on the ground. This will be very useful to locate her resting place. But our guy doesn't want to dig right now, so let's go find something else to do. So, remember those blocks in the nursery? Yeah, it's the only place that had numbers, so here we go again. In here we can see that the blocks spell out Auburn. And considering that the letter we found in the bronze plaque was R, seems safe to say that the baby's name was Robin. So we input the code following the blocks and in here we find nothing. Oh wait, we can move this. No? Okay, how about... Oh, there was a different sound there. No? Oh, it's open. I have no idea what I did, but yay. And in here we have an ornate key. This has to be the chapel's. Something that I'm really enjoying about Monday is that it's very logical. Sunday was a whole lot of guessing what this stupid man wants to do. But today things are following a very logical flow. I really like it. Anyways, on to the chapel. Oh, brother. Hey, Jesus. Don't mind me, I'm just taking the state apart, I guess. Up here we find a Bible, and in it, there's a nail. Hey, Jesus. Just trying to exorcise an evil spirit. You understand, right? Inserting the nail, the eerie plaque behind his head tilts, and taking it, we uncover a secret alcove in the altar. Down here, we find a candle, the only one in the entire estate. Which, by the way, after thinking long and hard, I think the candle situation is once again the dev's sense of humor. Because, yeah, these houses always have a bunch of candles. But considering that, electricity was in full swing, people were probably like wealthy people, like the Blackwoods, were probably at least thinking about installing like a generator or something. So yeah, this is not as on the nose, but I really think that the lack of candles, despite all the fancy like candle holders, is the dev being like, haha, you know what I mean? But anyways, we light it and now we can see what's on the table here. There's a piece of wood which we take, and then there's more of James's writing. March 26th. The folklore of the Dalmar is just as disturbing as their vicious attacks. If my researchers have been correct, then I could have stumbled upon one of the most ancient tribes ever known to humanity, dating back to the era where the so-called Bushmen inhabited South Africa. We're talking over 20,000 years ago. How could any civilization manage to survive all this time without ever hunting or expanding? Just being there. I don't dare to imagine what 200 centuries of inbreeding and cannibalism can do to people. I've seen them, and they can't be called humans. What is the most unsettling is their mystical background, impossible to be considered a religion due to its complete lack of basic rules and maturity. The only simple premise is to keep an evil entity at bay, which has been stalking them since the beginning of time, or Dark Ages. At this point in my research, I had to stop and consider the implications. The Dalmar actually thought of their later period, the systematic slaughtering of mankind, as good times or golden ages. I thank the Lord that this tribe never managed to grow, as I seriously think the region, or maybe even the entire continent, would have suffered terrible consequences. This history is so ancient that it makes me feel dizzy. The vengeful god, which is incidentally referred to as Dolhom, would control the Dalmar via its many incarnations. Most of the time, it would be a tall feline-like figure always dwelling in the shadows and slaying any villager who would unwittingly come close. Some say its deadly claws would not only penetrate your body, but your soul. The purpose of the harassment is unclear. It would look as if the Dalmar were simple toys to play with. It seems then that the Dalmar managed to free themselves from its clutches with the help of an amulet or charm, which would effectively force the entity to retreat. The most curious thing is how this amulet was conceived. Two main elements were required to perform the exorcising of this evil, and they had to be strictly related to each other. One representing the victim and the other representing the victimizer. To achieve this, something related to each one was used. While I'm not sure what is referred to as the victim, I think it can be concluded that anything belonging to any villager would have served, given that they were all victims. As for something representing the victimizer, that may have been more complicated. What could possibly be related to a god? This god in question. Next, these elements had to be mixed with a rare medicinal plant native to the region, which apparently had the properties to blend both items together, as long as they were not too solid. Finally, a branch of a particular tree, whose name escapes me now, had to be used as the holder of the blended items. It is on this item that a mysterious blessing was performed. It should be noted that all the elements had to be organic. The Dalmar successfully released themselves from the control of the vicious god with an intense ritual that seems to have taken days to perform. In the end, the amulet was so powerful that the entity surrendered to their will and offered divine power in exchange for sacrifices. But the Dalmar wouldn't allow to be fooled. They decided that getting rid of this evil once and for all would be the wisest thing to do. So they managed to capture its spirit and store it someplace where they could guard it for ages to come. My god, my god. The evil spirit was cast into a mask, trapped inside the confines of its blessed wood for eternity. A mask which its description bears uncanny resemblance to... Who am I fooling? It is that mask. The Dalmar would keep the spirit at bay via regular rituals, involving the bloody sacrifices and the aforementioned amulet. The last book I read today about the Dalmar, in reality 2 small paragraphs as amusing bonus reading in a book lent by the museum, has revealed to me something that left me completely paralyzed with terror. I've always wondered since I began studying them what made the Dalmar savagely slaughter neighboring tribes without any apparent reason. Was it a violent, raw instinct? Did they feel threatened in any way? Was it a perverse and ungodly sense of enjoyment? No, it was fear. Fear that someone else would take the mask and release the god. They killed to protect themselves from falling again into the Dark Ages. If they went to such extreme lengths to avoid this, then what did they have to endure when the entity was free? The rituals haven't been performed on the mask for years now. What have I done? What have I done? Oh great, it's worse than we thought. But now we know how to get rid of the entity, I think? Or like, bro, I just wanna write. I don't wanna become the guardian of this bloodthirsty god, if you, I'm sure you understand. There's another letter here, addressed to Christopher, begging him to go forward with the banishing ritual, since James's hands are tied. Catherine's been watching him closely, and he fears that she'll commit him to an insane asylum or something of the sort if he does anything out of the ordinary. Well, seems like someone here didn't comply to his best friend's last wish. A lot has happened, so it's time to update Jerry on the discoveries. He tells us that he's been thinking. We might be onto something, but if we're right, we're in danger and must leave the estate immediately. James Blackwood might be dangerous. We tell him that, James Blackwood, if he's alive, is, 80? Pretty sure he stands no chance against us. He continues to try to convince us, but bye, Jerry. Right after that call, we find an eviction notice in the mail. Blah blah blah, irregular purchase made by Jerry, must leave the premises immediately or will be arrested. Wow, not only is he a bad friend, he's also a horrible real estate agent. No more calling Jerry, we're on our own and thank God for that. At this point I was like, well, maybe we should just leave. And that's when I found this out. The saddest honk I've ever heard in my life. You start honking in traffic with this and you won't get in a fight. The other drivers are gonna come perform a wellness check on you. Anyways, we can now take the car battery and remember that weird device attached to the bike? Yeah, turns out that it allows us to recharge the battery. Amazing! And so efficient too! But no, we can't leave now. It's our responsibility to... what? Well, follow that amulet recipe at least. So it's finally time to dig up Catherine Blackwood. It's easy to locate the shadow we saw in the picture, but takes a while to find the exact spot. You have to click pixel perfectly. We now take one of her teeth, take this tooth from the African display, grind them both into powders, add the leaves of that African plant, heat everything up, and now we have this stone. Attaching it to the branch, we now have an amulet, and can hear the evil voices laughing around us. We go downstairs, the voices growing louder. and then wave the amulet in the mask's face. And then... silence. Yippee, good one, let's get out of here. I stood there paralyzed in terror, and I heard those horrible noises again. They just wouldn't stop. No. We tried. Let's get out of here. I knew it was waiting for me. I had to go. Oh, for fuck's sake. Fine, let's see this guy get his head bitten off by a wooden mask. Oh, wait. The noises are actually the scratching. And there's a secret passage through the living room fireplace. Here we find a sort of jail cell. In there a teddy bear with its head hanging on by a thread. And then this.
Unsure of what I had just seen, I raced my car and left Blackwood Manor as quickly as possible. I am not ashamed of what I did. That disfigured face is still stalking my nightmares, and I've never put foot inside a Victorian house ever since. But there's certainly one thing that I'm grateful for. It was thanks to my encounter below that house that I was able to finish my book and become a prolific writer.
And that was Scratches. That was kind of a meh ending, but the real meat and potatoes of the game is the atmosphere, so I'm not mad at it. Plus, finding that letter from Christopher to Catherine was a pretty serviceable climax, I think. I think that it's pretty clear that I absolutely love this game. The location, the atmosphere, the story, the attention to detail, the ceilings. I think that my idea for the story would have been cooler. Like James actually going crazy with paranoia and then kills his wife and friend in a fit of rage because the infidelity and them kill... it wasn't made clear, but them allegedly killing his son. Or maybe it was the mask influencing all of them. Ooh. But yeah, that diary just throws a wrench in that whole ordeal, so I'm guessing that creature was Milton? Crazy after years and years of being alone in the house with the mask. But wait, that's not all. We still have the last visit to cover. Maybe this will clear up some of the ambiguity of the ending.
In other words, you must head right away to the Blackwood estate and get me something.
But sir, that story is long forgotten now. No one cares anymore about...
They will as soon as the estate is demolished. 2 weeks from now, that place is going to be smashed to bits. It's such an event will revive all the rumors and madness.
Michael Arthayet supposedly solved the Blackwood enigma, but for some reason never shared his solution. Perhaps I could persuade him...
You can forget about that. Mr. Arthayet rarely speaks to the press, and less so about this story. Not even the most experienced and reputed reporters in the field have convinced him to talk.
I'm glad to hear you think so highly of me, sir. Perhaps he decided that preserving the mystery would be in the best interests of everyone.
No, I think he's a very unstable fella, and his solution was probably as far-fetched as what town people were rumoring back in the 60s. You know, a family curse or aliens from outer space possessing Blackwood.
Yes, thrilling. What about Jerry Carter?
Jerry Carter was convicted to 8 years in prison with a serious charge of fraud, but only spent 4 inside and is now doing community services under probational liberty. He's never crossed a single word with Michael since his stay at Blackwood Manor and probably doesn't know a thing about the mystery.
I can't say I'm excited about this, but I don't have much of a choice, I guess.
No, what you have is a potentially great article on your hands. Do your best, as this is probably our last chance to shed some light about what happened inside that house.
Fine. I'll drive there tomorrow.
So here we are, and the estate has seen better days. It looks... Okay, we already know that the devs have never seen the sky in their lives, but the inside of the house also looks not great. Like, you know how the animatronics in FNAF 1 look like they've been through a lot and they smell but could feasibly still function? But then FNAF 3 rolls around and it's like, okay, this is getting a little bit ridiculous. That's what I feel here. The mold and dirt in the original game felt very intentionally placed. But this withering just looks like the same filter all throughout the house. I mean, we restored the water, so it would be very coherent for the basement and the bathroom to be black mold infernos. And yet they have more or less the same withering as the other non-watered parts of the house. I understand that this is just a fun little extra, but I guess I was spoiled by the attention to detail in the first one. Let's continue. Most areas are inaccessible, either due to floods or robbers taking doorknobs, but one place that's completely accessible is the cell downstairs. We can see something shiny in the hole there, but an angry cat is guarding it.
Here, kitty, kitty. Ah! It almost ripped my hand off.
Oh, okay, that's actually a cat. We just throw some water on it through this hole and it runs away. And just like that, we get a doorknob. We try to use it with the door to the library. I mean, that letter would be the scoop of the century, but it doesn't fit. It's actually the kitchen's doorknob. Down in the basement, we find a rag and some cleaning fluid, and that allows us to clean the window to take a better look at the bathroom.
I can't tell exactly why, but I don't like this mask one bit.
And then we try to leave, but no, gotta go back to look at the mask again. And then...
Who are you? What are you doing here? Can't you see this place is dangerous? Robin, please forgive me. I had to see you before I returned to my dying bed.
As I hurriedly left Blackwood Manor, I tried putting together what I just experienced, to no avail. I was in shock and couldn't think clearly, and it took many days until I was ready to pass judgment on what I'd seen. The Blackwood estate has now been demolished, and I have arrived at a conclusion. It is clear that the Blackwood family, with the help of this Dr. Milton, kept their son hidden from the public as he was suffering from severe malformations. It is unclear whether he was truly dangerous, or the Blackwoods were simply psychotic. Quite possibly one thing led to another, and this situation ended with the death of Catherine Blackwood. We can finally give some closure to this sad episode in the peaceful town of Rothbury. And yet, there's something I can't quite explain. A missing link, something that just doesn't fit. We may never know what the real heart of the mystery is. but for the time being, this will have to do.
What? So, Dr. Milton just went off to a retirement home? Like, I'm out of here and left Robin there? Then what was the letter talking about? What we did 2 years ago? This is such a bad conclusion. Why would you even go through the trouble of making this DLC when it's absolute trash and undermines the main story? You know what? I'm just gonna ignore the last visit. Nope, didn't happen. So that was Scratch's director's cut. I loved it, it was amazing, it looks amazing, I loved it being there. I loved being in Blackwood Manor, I loved it. And I loved that greenhouse in particular. Anyways, it's a shame that you can't buy it anymore, unless you wanna buy like a physical copy on eBay, but like, other than that, you can't buy the game. But the devs, I'm actually not sure how many people transferred from Scratches to this new project. Anyways, they have a new game out, Asylum by Sandscape. Critics have praised the visuals, but said that the gameplay is dated, so sounds perfect for us, right? I haven't checked it out yet, but will do in the future. And that's it. That's all I had to say. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, blah 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 blah. And I didn't think this through. I was like, oh, it would be nice to record here. But then I was like, oh, the things I print out. So I'm gonna leave the credit for this art, hold on, no, this is Jeff. This one in the description because I would feel pretty shitty otherwise. And yeah, I'll make more videos if an evil doesn't follow my head. Bye!